The easiest way to multiply decimals by whole numbers is just to do them as if the decimal point wasn't there at all, and then add in the correct number of decimal places afterwards. So, for example, if I were multiplying 3.72 by 3, I would write down the calculation just as if I were going to multiply 372 by 3, like that. And then the next step I would do exactly as usual. If I was multiplying 372 by 3, I would say 3 2s are 6. And then I would say 3 7s give me 21. Put down the 1 and carry a 2. 3 3s are 9 and add the 2 gives me 11. Like that. And I'll just get rid of my little 2 that I don't need. But if we look at the original question, you can see that after the decimal point in the original question, I've got 2 decimal places. And so what I'm going to do is put a decimal point in my answer so that I get 2 decimal places there as well. So I'm going to put it exactly there, because then afterwards I get 2 decimal places. So the rules very simply are, do the multiplication as usual. When you've done that, give the answer the same number of decimal places as the original decimal had in the first place. But it's worth saying, this rule works for multiplication of decimals by whole numbers. We're going to change this rule a little bit when we multiply decimals by decimals. In this next example, I'm going to multiply 4.25 by 30. Now I could write out a long multiplication. I could write 4.25 multiplied by 30, written down the page, and work out the calculation from there. But it's a little easier to do if we realize that 30 is the same as 10 lots of 3. So actually, the calculation that I want to do, I can write as 4.25 times 10 times 3, but the 4.25 multiplied by 10 is the same thing as 42.5, using our rules for multiplying by 10. And then all we have to do is multiply by 3 at the end. Now at this stage, you might be able to do it in your head, but it doesn't matter if you can't, or you don't want to, or you're being too careful, or being very careful properly to make sure you get the answer right. If you do it using long multiplication, what we do is we multiply the 3 times the 5, which gives us 15. So put a 5 down and carry a 1. 3 times 2 is 6, and add in a 1, which gives me 7. And I'll get rid of my 1. And 3 times 4 gives me 12. Like so. And then having got 1275, I do the same thing as before. I look at the original calculation that I've done, or rather I look at the calculation here, which is the important one for working out the answer, and I can see that in the original decimal here, I've got 1 single decimal place after the decimal point. So the same will be true in my final answer. So I'm going to put a decimal place just there, because that means that again, after my decimal point, I'm going to have 1 single decimal place.